And then Anne found the entrance. It was quite by accident. She was tired and sat down to rest. She lay on her front and scrabbled about in the sand. Suddenly her fingers touched something hard and cold in the sand. She uncovered it, and lo and behold, it was an iron ring. She gave a shout and the others looked up. "There's a stone with an iron ring in it here," yelled Anne, excitedly. They all rushed over to her. Julian dug about with his spade and uncovered the whole stone. Sure enough, it did have a ring in it, and rings are only let into stones that need to be moved. Surely this stone must be the one that covered the dungeon entrance. All the children took turns at pulling on the iron ring, but the stone did not move. Then Julian tied 2 or 3 turns of rope through it and the 4 children put out their full strength and pulled for all they were worth. The stone moved. The children distinctly felt it stir. "All together again!" cried Julian. And all together they pulled. The stone stirred again and then suddenly gave way. It moved upwards, and the children fell over on top of one another like a row of dominoes suddenly pushed down. Tim darted to the hole and barked madly down it as if all the rabbits of the world lived there. Julian and George shot to their feet and rushed to the opening that the moved stone had disclosed. They stood there, looking downwards, their faces shining with delight. They had found the entrance to the dungeons. A steep flight of steps, cut out of the rock itself, led downwards into deep darkness. "Come on!" cried Julian, snapping on his torch. "We found what we wanted. Now for the dungeons." The steps down were slippery. Tim darted down first, lost his foothold and rolled down 5 or 6 steps, yelping with fright. Julian went after him, then George, then Dick and then Anne. They were all tremendously thrilled. Indeed, they quite expected to see piles of gold and all kinds of treasure everywhere around them. It was dark down the steep flight of steps, and smelt very musty. Anne choked a little. "I hope the air down here is all right," said Julian. "Sometimes it isn't good in these underground places. If anyone feels a bit funny they'd better say so and we'll go up into the open air again." But however funny they might feel, nobody would have said so. It was all far too exciting to worry about feeling queer. The steps went down a long way. Then they came to an end. Julian stepped down from the last rock stair and flashed his torch around. It was a weird sight that met his eyes. The dungeons of Kirin Castle were made out of the rock itself. Whether there were natural caves there, or whether they had been hollowed out by man, the children could not tell. But certainly they were very mysterious, dark and full of echoing sounds. When Julian gave a sigh of excitement, it fled into the rocky hollows and swelled out and echoed around as if it were a live thing. It gave all the children a very queer feeling. "Isn't it strange?" said George, in a low voice. At once the echoes took up her words, and multiplied them and made them louder, and all the dungeon caves gave back the girl's words over and over again. "Isn't it strange, isn't strange, isn't strange." Anne slipped her hand into Dick's. She felt scared. She didn't like the echoes at all. She knew they were only echoes, but they did sound exactly like the voices of scores of people hidden in the caves. "Where do you suppose the ingots are?" said Dick. And at once the caves threw him back his words. "Ingots. Ingots are. Ingots are. Are. Are." Julian laughed, and his laugh was split up into dozens of different laughs that came out of the dungeons and spun round the listening children. It really was the queerest thing. "Come on," said Julian. "Maybe the echoes won't be so bad a little farther in." "Farther in," said the echoes at once. "Farther in." They moved away from the end of the rocky steps and explored the nearby dungeons. They were really only rocky cellars stretching under the castle. Maybe wretched prisoners had been kept there many years before, but mostly they had been used for storing things.